So let me say good morning to everybody. And as I just said, before we begin, take a moment to reflect. Today's the 24th anniversary of September the 11th, 2001 terrorist attack on our country. I think it's fitting before we engage in debate of our political disagreements of the day to remember the tragedy and recall how it united us as American people in our resolve against those who inflict violence against our political ends. Tragically, we have another reason to reflect on this same topic because yesterday Charlie Kirk was assassinated while speaking at Utah Valley University. I'm sure we're all praying for Charlie and his family, although we don't know all the details about the shooting, the motive, or that motive. It's a horrible reminder that acts of political terrorism and violence are something that we must resolve to oppose every day. On today's agenda, we have listed the nominations of Joshua Dunlap and Eric Tung to be circuit judges, William Mercer and Stephen Chad Meredith to be district judges, and the nominations of 18 individuals to be U.S. attorneys. We'll hold over the nomination of Scott Leary to be U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Mississippi, and we'll consider him at a later date. The nominees that we're considering today are well qualified for their roles, and I look forward to supporting them. I encourage my colleagues to do the same. Before we turn to the agenda, I'd like to address the ongoing obstruction of executive branch employees in the United States Senate. Historically, the consideration of U.S. attorneys has been a routine and bipartisan exercise, both in committee and on the Senate floor. These men and women have answered the call to public service and are needed to uphold the public safety in their communities. U.S. attorneys have nearly always been voted out of committee by voice vote and then confirmed by voice vote or unanimous consent. During the last administration, 94% of President Biden's U.S. attorney nominees were confirmed by voice vote on the Senate floor, but so far not a single U.S. attorney has been confirmed on the Senate floor by voice. In fact, the Democrats haven't allowed a single voice vote on the floor for any civilian nominee this Congress. The obstruction of U.S. attorneys hurts our public safety. As I've said many times, and I've said this on the Senate floor as well, 81% of the Americans think that crime in the large cities is a major concern. We have only to look at tragedies from the last few days to understand why Americans are concerned about crime in our cities. The murder of Charlie Kirk yesterday, the school shootings in Colorado yesterday, the recent mass shootings of little children at the Catholic Church in Minnesota, or the senseless murder of a young woman on a train in Charlotte. We, as elected leaders, have a responsibility to do something about this, and we can do something about it by installing federal law enforcement officers to keep people safe. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to do that in the United States Senate the way it's being obstructed today. Senate Democrats cannot accept that President Trump won the election, so they have chosen to light the Senate traditions on fire and campaign partisan outrage. For months, I've begged my colleagues to put the safety of American communities over partisan obstruction. I've warned of the lasting damage their strategy will cause in the Senate as an institution and to our constitutional advice and consent role. I've gone to the Senate floor multiple times to implore my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to relent from this destructive path. My appeals have, of course, fallen on deaf ears. The obstruction of U.S. attorneys is just one piece of a broader strategy of the Democratic leadership to not have the Senate move forward on very important issues. This only hurts the American people. And now this unprecedented obstruction is impacting the operation of our Judiciary Committee for the last 75 years and probably much longer. The Senate Judiciary Committee has reported many of our nominees by voice vote. This is an efficient, cooperative way to process nominations, is generally appreciated by both the majority and minority caucuses. Under my chairmanship of this committee, we have only taken voice votes with the explicit consent of the ranking member, and never when an objection has been raised when we didn't understand fully what all the minority members of this committee wanted to do. So when I recently heard that some of our non-controversial U.S. attorneys who were reported by voice vote might be challenged, I made a simple request. I went to the floor and asked my colleagues to honor the validity of our voice votes and our long-standing bipartisan practice. I was sincerely disappointed when Senator Schumer objected to my request and ruined this long-standing tradition. This was nothing more than an act of destructive partisanship because of his decision, like so many of his other decisions since 2003. Another Senate norm has been broken, and today we're forced to vote again on 10 U.S. attorneys that we've already voted on. This pattern of unrelenting partisan obstruction needs to end. We tried to end it by negotiations, but now we must end it by rule change. The American people deserve a functioning executive branch. They deserve a Senate-confirmed law enforcement officers. They deserve a functioning Senate. If Leader Schumer and the Democrats won't agree to give that to the American people, then we must take decisive action, and we will. As a final note, I have to say about my friend Senator Durbin, the ranking member, he and I have good relationships, even despite our political differences of views on legislative issues. I appreciate that we try to work together where we can, and that we respectfully disagree when we can't work together. I'm disappointed that our cooperation in the management of this committee and as chairman and ranking member wasn't respected by Senator Schumer. Senator Durbin.